Heinrich Schliemann's discovery of the ancient city of Troy, Hisarlik, in the 19th century, revealed layers of destruction that could correspond with the timeline of the Trojan War. Artifacts and remnants found at the site suggest the existence of a powerful city with advanced culture. Ancient Greek and Roman historians such as Herodotus and Strabo referred to Troy as part of their history, reinforcing the idea of a historical basis for the war. The location of Troy, in modern-day Turkey, matches the descriptions of the city in ancient texts, and the relationship between Troy and its surrounding regions like the Aegean and Anatolia could suggest the occurrence of strategic military conflict. The Mycenaean civilization, associated with the Greeks in the myth, was a real and powerful civilization at the time, and their military activities might have inspired the story of the Trojan War. While the Trojan horse is a mythic symbol, it may also symbolize real military tactics used in siege warfare during the era. Historical accounts referencing the Trojan War include writings from ancient Greek and Roman historians such as Herodotus and Strabo, who mention Troy as part of their historical narrative. These early historians did not dismiss the story as purely mythical and instead treated it as a part of their cultural history. Additionally, the works of Homer, particularly the Iliad, present detailed accounts of the Trojan War, with specific locations and events that appear to align with the geography and cultures of the time. While these accounts are often intertwined with mythological elements, their references to real places and people suggest that there might be historical kernels within the legendary tales of the war. Geographical evidence supports the idea that the Trojan War could be based on real events. The ancient city of Troy is located in modern-day Turkey, near the Dardanelles Strait, which was a strategic location in the ancient world. This matches the descriptions of Troy in ancient texts, suggesting that the city was indeed a real, influential place. The proximity of Troy to both the Aegean and Anatolian regions indicates its potential involvement in military conflicts, which may have inspired the tale of the Trojan War. Additionally, the site's location fits with the strategic importance described in Homeric texts, where Troy is portrayed as a major player in the geopolitical landscape of the time. The Mycenaean civilization, often linked to the Greeks in the myth of the Trojan War, was a real and powerful culture that flourished during the Late Bronze Age. Known for their advanced architecture, art, and military prowess, the Mycenaeans were significant players in the ancient world. Their presence in the Aegean region and their involvement in trade and warfare make them plausible candidates for the historical basis of the Greeks described in Homer's Iliad. The Mycenaeans were also known for their strong fortifications and warrior culture, which aligns with the way the Greeks are portrayed in the Trojan War narrative, particularly in their siege of Troy. Thus, the Mycenaeans' existence and influence could have inspired the mythological story of the war. Trojan horse, one of the most famous symbols of the Trojan War, could represent real military tactics used in ancient siege warfare. While the story itself is mythical, the idea of using deceptive strategies to infiltrate a fortified city is grounded in historical warfare practices. Ancient cultures, including the Mycenaeans, would have employed trickery and cunning during military campaigns, making the concept of the Trojan horse not entirely fictional. The influence of the Trojan War extends beyond military tactics, as its story has shaped Western cultural and literary traditions for centuries, symbolizing themes of fate, heroism, and the complexity of human nature. These enduring themes suggest that the war's cultural impact might be rooted in real historical conflicts, even if the specifics of the war itself are more myth than fact. There is no direct evidence linking the destruction of Troy to the events described in the Iliad, leaving many to question the historical authenticity of the Trojan War. While the ruins of Troy exist, the archaeological findings do not conclusively prove that the city's fall was caused by the war depicted in the Yam myth. The timeline of Troy's destruction also does not perfectly align with the dates of the events in the Iliad, making it difficult to establish a direct historical connection. The lack of definitive evidence raises doubts about the war's existence as a singular historical event and suggests that it may be a creation of mythological storytelling rather than a real conflict. The involvement of gods in the Trojan War, as depicted in the Iliad, is a strong indication that the story is more myth than history. Gods like Zeus, Hera, Athena, and Apollo intervene in human affairs, influencing the outcomes of battles and the fates of warriors. These supernatural elements are typical of ancient myths and legends rather than historical accounts. The larger-than-life heroes, such as Achilles, Hector, and Paris, embody traits of mythic figures rather than real individuals. Their epic feats and near-superhuman abilities suggest that the Trojan War is more likely a work of legend, where divine influence and extraordinary characters serve to convey moral and philosophical lessons rather than document an actual historical event. The timelines of Troy's destruction and the events described in the Iliad do not match up perfectly, leading some to question the historical accuracy of the Trojan War. The dating of the city's fall, based on archaeological evidence, does not correspond with the time period suggested by Homer's account. Additionally, the Iliad places the war in a specific cultural and historical context, but there is no clear alignment with the historical records from the era. The contradictions in these timelines suggest that the Trojan War, as described in the myth, may not correspond to a single, real event, but rather be a blend of various conflicts and stories woven together over time. Some scholars argue that the Trojan War is a symbol rather than a literal historical event. The war could represent the internal conflicts and struggles within Greek society, reflecting themes of betrayal, pride, and the destructive nature of war. It might also symbolize the broader tensions between Greek city-states, or even the conflicts between the Mycenaeans and other neighboring cultures. The myth of the Trojan War could have served as an allegory for the rise and fall of civilizations, illustrating the consequences of hubris, the fragility of peace, and the inevitable cycle of conflict. These symbolic interpretations suggest that the Trojan War was created not to recount a specific historical battle, but to communicate universal truths about human nature and society. The Iliad and Odyssey were passed down through oral tradition, meaning that the stories were recited and modified over generations before being written down. This process allowed for significant changes in the narrative, as each storyteller added their own embellishments or alterations to the events. This blending of different versions of the story over time could have led to a mythic portrayal of the Trojan War, rather than a factual recounting. The oral tradition also meant that historical events could be exaggerated or transformed into grand legends, with supernatural elements and heroic feats being incorporated to make the tale more engaging and memorable. As a result, the Trojan War as told by Homer could be a product of this fluid storytelling tradition, more a myth than a historical record. In conclusion, the Trojan War remains one of the most intriguing and debated events in ancient history. While archaeological evidence and historical accounts suggest there may be some truth to the myth, the lack of direct evidence and the numerous mythological elements present in the story leave room for doubt. The contradictory timelines and the possibility that the war was passed down through oral tradition only further complicate the issue. Whether the Trojan War is a real historical event or a symbolic tale designed to convey moral lessons, its lasting influence on culture, literature, and our understanding of human nature remains undeniable. Ultimately, the war's status as both myth and potential history invites us to explore the boundaries between legend and fact, challenging us to consider how stories evolve and shape our understanding of the past.